Hey YouTube, Kevin Cleary here with a knife video for you. This is one that I should have done a while ago. This is my Byrd Cara Cara. Great knife. Definitely gets a lot of stuff right, including value. This is certainly a value folder, and you're getting a lot for your money. And not only does it get that right, but it also gets the size and weight right on the money. You know, you get a lot of blade, a lot of functionality in a fairly small and convenient carry package with this knife. Now, by way of introduction, I should say that the Byrd line is sort of Spyderco's value knife line, and what they typically are. In fact, I think all of them, I'm going to go out on a limb and say what the Byrd knives are regular production Spyderco's, only produced with lower cost materials overseas to cut down the cost. And so this knife is, of course, very much like the Spyderco Endura. Has similar functioning, similar size and weight, similar blade shape, all of that kind of stuff is going to be very, very close. And that's one of the reasons that I actually picked it up. I was on the fence about the Endura, but I wanted to get some experience with it. Now I will say the Delica is just too small for me, but the Endura I thought should be a good option. But in order to really be sure about that, I picked up this knife, and I picked this up quite a while ago. It's over a year ago for sure, and I've been using it a lot, and I actually really, really like it. And so because of that, I will be adding an Endura to my collection, but there's a particular one that I want, and it's not going to be available until probably 2015. So I'll be waiting on that. Just to give you a little clue, the Delica version of the Endura that I want is already released, and you can buy that now, but it's just I'll be waiting till the Endura comes out to pick up the particular Endura model that I'm interested in adding. So let's move into size and weight, because that's one of the things that I really, really like about this knife. Closed, it is 4 3/4 inches by 3/8 of an inch, and it only weighs 4.25 ounces. So you have a pretty small, convenient package here. It's easy to carry. You hardly notice it. And yet, when you open it up, you've got this big, capable blade. 3 3/4 inch blade on a 4 3/4 inch knife. You get, it's actually, about a 1/16 more in both of those dimensions. So you end up with 8 5/8 instead of 8 1/2 inches. So you end up with a nice, big, capable knife, even though it's very light and very easy to carry, which is really, really good. And that's what we look for in size and weight, isn't it? Right? You don't want a knife that weighs 10 ounces and has this massive handle, but then it only has like this little 3-inch piddly blade on it. You want that good ratio of lightweight and easy to carry, and yet you've got a nice big blade. And that's one of the things that the Byrd Cara Cara really excels at. Now, getting into the blade itself, it is 8CR13 MOV. That's my dog barking. Someone must be walking by on the sidewalk. It is 8CR13 MOV, which is one of the differences between this and the Endura. There are some other differences. I'm not going to go into all of that, but nice long drop point blade, good belly, full flat grind. It does have the Byrd hole for deployment. I think that Byrd hole is kind of ugly, but it is very, very functional. And I guess Spyderco wanted to do something different than the Spyder hole to differentiate the Byrd line from their other knives, which is fine. The full flat grind is extremely useful, and one of the reasons people like full flat grind knives is not because they're so good at a particular thing. Now, they are. If you notice, most food preparation knives, kitchen knives, butcher knives are full flat grind. A hollow grind, although starts out a cut very well, the thickness becomes problematic fairly quickly. Anyway, so the full flat grind is good because it's versatile. It can do everything. Are there some situations where a hollow grind beats it? Absolutely. But are there other situations? But are there situations that a hollow grind is maybe not that great? Sure. And so the nice thing about a full flat grind is the versatility. It'll just do everything all the time. Just really, really kind of a broad use. And that's the other nice thing about this knife is because of that blade length, you've got a lot of utility there. You've got anything you can think of needing to do with a knife, you've got the length to do it, even though, again, you're in a reasonably small package. There is this half choil here, which can be a little challenging for sharpening this little last bit of the blade. It's not the end of the world. And if you really, really are like obsessive about it, you could take a flat stone and sort of tuck it in there and sharpen it that way. I still use a rod sharpener, and I know because of the roundness of the rod, I'm not getting into that very bottom portion, and that doesn't bother me. But that's, you know, maybe that would bother you. There is a workaround for that situation. Anyway, moving on with the knife itself, the blade is HCR 13 MOV, which is definitely a budget steel. It's just the Chinese decent stainless steel, okay? I know everyone talks about it being the Chinese equivalent of AUS 8. I don't believe it is. I think it performs differently than AUS 8. I think it doesn't hold an edge quite as well. And I even think the properties of the steel are slightly different. That's experience talking, not a detailed chemical analysis of the metallurgy on the two blades. And maybe it's just the knives that I have in those two steels have been heat treated differently, which are creating the differences. Anyway, I feel like it's a little bit chippy, but very, very good for an EDC blade, especially a budget blade. Consider that you're getting HCR 13 MOV here in the Byrd Cara Cara. You'd also be getting that in the Tenacious, only the Tenacious is like 45 bucks and this is like 30. So, by the way, you're also getting a longer blade, and you're still getting G10 on the G10 version of the Byrd Cara Cara. There's also an FRN version, and at the time that I picked this up, I didn't have any Spyderco FRN knives. I do now, and probably would say there's not that much difference. I think if you're looking at this knife and you're thinking about going with the FRN, I don't think you should hesitate. I think it's just fine. I have the G10, and I like the G10 as well. It is very grippy. It's very, very similar to my Spyderco Persistence, you know, made in the same factory. Very, very unbelievably similar. If you put the two side by side, they just look like they would come from the same family or something. This would be the taller, you know, lanky brother, right? Anyway, it is closed construction, lock back. There is an Andrew Boyd dent there, and the idea behind that is to make it a little less likely that you'd accidentally release the knife. Now, when I'm cutting, you can see the way my hand fits. I'm never actually touching that, even when, no matter what grip I use, my hand doesn't really get anywhere near the lock in terms of where I'm really squeezing. So, probably doesn't matter. The pocket clip is the typical Spyderco pocket clip in terms of that Tenacious lineup. So you've got the little hole in the middle for your Torx bit. However, I will say I've got it in a variation that no one likes and no one usually uses, which is tip down carry. I'm doing that because I've got a video coming up where I'm going to, you know, have a bunch of knives in pocket, deploy them and cut something, and just compare the ease of use and the speed and all that kind of stuff. So that video is coming up, and that's why I have this in a tip down position, just to compare to other knives in the tip up position. Lanyard hole is sufficient size for 550 cord, although you can see that if you put a lanyard on this, it ends up, you know, with a lot of handle behind it, which I'm not a big fan of. And I don't use a lot of lanyards on my knives anyway. I just find them more of an inconvenience than anything. So let's see, that talks about the handle. By the way, the handle is very comfortable, even though it's fairly thin. I've done quite a bit of hard cutting with this. This is one of my, you know, user knives. I really kind of take it whenever I'm afraid I'm doing something that might ruin a knife. I always bring this one. And it performs really, really well. I've never had any problems with it. It's super comfortable. I love the fact that you can choke up with the half choil and thumb ramp there and get some fine cutting done. And you can even go one step further and get your thumb up there onto the back of the blade and really do those detailed tasks. So great ergonomics on this knife. The handle is G10. The only thing I haven't told you yet is that the stainless steel liners, they're full stainless steel liners, and they're not milled out in any way. So the knife's not that heavy anyway, so it's sort of like, who cares? I guess you could try to save that 0.25 of an ounce by milling that out yourself. It wouldn't make sense in a budget knife to do that, because now you're adding an extra step to production, which is adding cost, and that's the whole point of this knife, is to keep it a low-cost blade. And that is one thing where this knife really, really does well. I think I picked this one up for like $31 and change. And that's generally what they go for. You may, if you found a great sale or something, get it a little lower than that. Probably between $30 and $35 though is what you're going to pay for this. And for that price, this is an outstanding knife. I think it's a great everyday carry knife. It's a great knife for bushcraft, for all kinds of things. The only exception is don't baton with it. There are a couple Endura videos out there where they really beat on an Endura, and they do get the lock to fail, and you basically have the same lock here. So just know that it's not what I would consider a hard use knife, but it is a great everyday use, all around, you know, cut anything you could think of type of knife. It does take a very good edge, and it is easy to put that edge back on. So overall, I think this is a great knife. Highly recommend it. Especially, you know, obviously it's not a great collection knife. It's not, you know, there's nothing too special about it other than its usefulness. And so if you're looking for, you know, that one knife, or maybe you have some nicer knives and you want something you can carry just for, you know, if you're going to get muddy or it might get lost or broken or whatever, great option. Or if you just say, you know, I just need one pocket knife, I don't want to pay a lot of money for it, and I just want it to be really good and last for a long time, you're hard pressed to go wrong with the Byrd Cara Cara. So there you go. That's my take on this Byrd Cara Cara. Great knife. I actually carry it and use it a whole lot. Again, when you know, this says something about a knife. I think when you've got, you know, a $30 knife sitting right next to a $100 knife, and the one that ends up in your pocket is the $30 knife, you know, you're dealing with a pretty high-end or a pretty functional, capable blade when that's the situation. I'm not saying I don't, you know, I'm not saying I don't prefer some other knives over it, or if I had to get rid of all my knives, this would be the one I'd keep. No, that's not what it's designed for. But it is a great knife for a really, really good price. And I think if you are looking for an everyday carry knife and you like larger blades like I do, you're hard pressed to go wrong with the Byrd Cara Cara. There you go. Talk to you later, YouTube.